Hi everyone, welcome to Movie World. I'm Robert Waldman, again from the West Coast, beautiful British Columbia. As always, I want to wish everybody good health, happiness, and a long, long life. Today, we're going back to the past. We're going to Japan. Yes, the land of the rising sun. The movie I want to talk about today is ironically called Rising Sun. It's set in Los Angeles, however, but it's obviously all about Japanese custom and ritual and about a murder that occurs. The movie came out in 1993 and was directed by Philip Kaufman. Philip Kaufman, an accomplished writer who, by the way, helped write Raiders of the Lost Ark and a number of the Indiana Jones movies. Philip Kaufman directed this movie, and it's from a novel by Michael Crichton. If you don't know who Michael Crichton is, you probably should. He's one of the finest writers around. He gave us Jurassic Park. Little side note, he also helped turn Tom Selleck into a movie star when he filmed in the early 1980s a movie called Runaway in Vancouver. And that was one of the first movies to really establish British Columbia as a filmmaking center and a mega popular place for filmmaking. Now, on to the story Rising Sun. The movie is all about a murder that occurs in a high-rise building in Los Angeles. The building is actually owned by a Japanese conglomerate, and in the boardroom, a woman, a beautiful woman who happened to be the mistress to somebody, winds up dead. You could say they had a little bit of rough sex involving potential asphyxiation, strangulation that didn't go as planned, and the woman unfortunately passed away. Can you say cover up? Because the Japanese, the owners of the building, are involved in a merger with an American company. So there's all sorts of trickery involved and underhandedness in this building and amongst this group of very high-powered Japanese executives. So naturally, a murder occurs, you have to call in the police. So out to solve the crime is a detective from Los Angeles, from the LA Police Department, named Webster Smith. He's played by Wesley Snipes, very good actor. Many people will know from Blade and a host of other action movies. In order to solve the crime, however, Mr. Watson's superiors ask him to bring along another individual who's got police experience, a fellow named John Connor. Now, the reason John Connor is brought into the play, so to speak, is because he's an expert and very knowledgeable on Japanese customs and rituals and the way Japanese do business. John Connor is played by none other than Sean Connery. Little side note about Mr. Connery. Sean was in Japan in the early 1960s filming You Only Live Twice, so he knows a little bit about Japanese custom and tradition. As a matter of fact, you could say what Sean Connery's experience in Japan making You Only Live Twice in 1966 sort of soured him on the whole James Bond persona, because the Japanese, who were obsessed with cameras at the time, they wouldn't leave him alone. So it really got to Sean, and it sort of ended his relationship and happiness in the James Bond role. Surveillance is actually a key element of this story as the police try to solve the crime. And the other investigator, who's sort of a superior to Connor and Watson in this case, is a detective named Tom Graham, and he's played by none other than Harvey Keitel. And I've always admired Harvey Keitel. He's so good in so many roles as a backup. Quentin Tarantino cast him memorably in Reservoir Dogs, and Martin Scorsese cast Harvey Keitel in Mean Streets, a wonderful movie, but also featured Robert De Niro. So Scorsese's friendship with Keitel actually predates his friendship and long association with Robert De Niro. So you have a very good cast. Other small-time bit players in this piece included Tia Carrere, as someone who's also well-versed in Japanese tradition and culture, and also Steve Buscemi in an earlier role. Now, I enjoyed this movie. It is a bit gritty, it is a bit violent, and it really focuses on the Japanese culture and how to relate to Japan business practices. The movie is very well written and it's well directed, and Kaufman does a very good job. A little bit slow at times, but hey, you've got a charismatic performer in Sean Connery and Wesley Snipes, and you really can't go too wrong. If you like hard-boiled crime, I think you'll enjoy this movie. And another aside, obviously there are many Japanese actors in this movie, but I have to tell you, one of the characters is a fellow named Eddie Sukamara, I should say. And he's played by a very good, well-established Japanese actor who actually has a Japanese, American, and Russian heritage. And I'm talking about Cary Tagawa. Cary Tagawa is memorable. You wouldn't necessarily know him off the top of your head, but you would have seen him in many movies, including Pearl Harbor. And also, he was a pivotal part in the movie TV series called The Man in the High Castle, that I think was by Amazon or another American cable company, but really shot to fame internationally. The Man in the High Castle, incidentally, was filmed for a couple of years in British Columbia. An interesting twist on that story, it was set in World War II, and right after World War II, the pretense being if the Japanese had won the war. So good story. Rising Sun, the movie at hand. On a scale of 1 to 10, I'm going to give it a 7. It's pretty good. Robert Waldman for Movie World, thank you for watching. Hope to see you soon.